Hello and welcome to Managing Teams in a Remote Environment. Presenting today is Chris King. When Chris is not wearing his Chief Technologist hat for TOC, he promotes learning interventions that actually improve performance and change behaviors at Seek LLC. His tools of choice: effective classroom techniques, agile instructional design, the 5 moments of needs, Lego serious play, and a dash of project management discipline. He is fully committed to Seek's mission of waking up zombies in the workforce, helping agencies define and pursue organizational wellness. Chris is a project management professional, a certified Scrum Master, a certified 5 Moments of Need designer, and a certified facilitator in Lego serious play. He is currently working with several teams who have a need to refine and modernize their typical approach to L&D. So let's please welcome Chris. Chris, I will bring up your first slide, and the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Mel. I appreciate that. And wow, there's a lot of big words in that bio, so I probably need to take a look at that when you read it out loud versus when you or when you read it versus when you hear it out loud. Thanks everybody for joining us today. We are going to be talking about managing teams in a remote environment, and I appreciate everybody here, especially if you are currently remote. Oh wait, that's everybody. All right, so we are going to be talking a lot about some best practices and things that I think we are all dealing with right now in the current situations. So I will encourage everybody to keep up the chat. I do appreciate a healthy back channel conversation that's going on. If you have some questions, just toss them in there, and I'll do my best to keep up with them, and we'll try to leave a little time here at the end. We do have a packed agenda, so I am going to go pretty quickly here. But as Mel mentioned, we are recording this, and we'll make the recording available later. I also have a handout that has a bunch of the sources that I used when I created this presentation. So we'll post that along with the recording. So here's the agenda: common challenges, best practices, managing expectations, building connection and collaboration, and then the importance of having a positive team culture. That is the quick one right there. And so let me just start off with a question for you. What are your challenges? What are your challenges now? And Mel, I'll go ahead and grab that survey and put it over here for everybody. And open that up. So what are your challenges? What are you up against? You can select one or more of these things from the list here, and just go ahead. And if you want to click other and there's a different kind of challenge out there, just drop it in the chat. So we're talking about remote working. Remote. Your choice of terms varies, but it all means the same thing. It's working somewhere other than the office, and we've all been thrown into this at this point. It has definitely opened, I think, a bunch of people's eyes and about the potential, but we're also dealing with some of the pitfalls that come along with it. So I'm seeing distractions at home and staying motivated and lack of FaceTime with coworkers. Okay, that's surging to the top now. I'm going to go ahead and broadcast the results. Yeah. This is good. So, Gabe, too much fun, too little time. I appreciate that positivity, Gabe. You always bring it. Thank you. Yeah, so we've got distractions at home is starting to surge ahead of the pack in terms of the challenges that we're working with. FaceTime looks like it's up there. Unplugging after work. Yep. Okay. Helping clients understand the power of remote training. Oh, Dina, that is that is what we live for, right? Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now. Thank you, everybody, for contributing to that and letting us know about your challenges. We're going to talk about some of these things, and I appreciate that I actually guessed right on some of the challenges that you're up against. And so let's just jump into some of these things. So lack of face time with coworkers and supervisors. This is supervisors worried that employees won't work as hard or as efficiently, but actually research indicates that employees do work as hard or harder. So don't you can set that aside, that worry that your employees aren't going to be working if you're not watching over their shoulder. But it's not just supervisors. Employees feel the lack of face-to-face supervision too, and employees can often feel that a remote manager is out of touch with their needs, and that means that manager is neither being supportive nor helpful in getting the work done, and that impacts engagement. So both groups, managers and employees, often express these concerns about the lack of face-to-face interaction. And there's some very good research that shows it was a Harvard Business School study that has on the effects of a work from anywhere program on productivity at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, of all places. And that study actually showed that there was a 4.4% increase in output based on working from anywhere. So at Patent and Trade Office, at least, productivity went up when people stopped having to come into the office. On the other hand, some employees struggle with the reduced access to manager support and communication. If a manager is out of touch with your needs, it's going to be a challenge. Humans are social creatures, and face-to-face interaction is vital to our daily exchanges. Supervisors sometimes rely on just running into people in the hallway, walking past somebody's cube, seeing somebody at the coffee machine or at the water cooler. It's harder to stay on top of moods and frustrations that you can overhear in the office. And then on the supervisor, on the employee side, or actually on the people side, really, it's people are unconsciously scanning faces and body postures to read reactions. It's the nonverbal communication that we are all missing now because we aren't seeing people. So this is one of our challenges. Another challenge: lack of access to information. So you can't peek over the cube or slip down the hall to see if a colleague or supervisor is around to answer a quick question. It takes time and effort, much more than normal, to get information from coworkers. Everything takes longer online. This was something that Mel and I covered when we talked about converting instructor-led training to virtual instructor-led training. Everything takes more time when you're online. And then, when you're in a situation where you can't see people or just drop in on somebody to ask a quick question, it really starts to uncover the downsides of teams that don't have a certain level of trust or self-knowledge, because they will get more inefficient under those circumstances. So it is really starting to uncover cracks in the teams that we have. And so that's one of our challenges. Another challenge, distractions. So I'm going to throw up some pictures that appear in my company's Slack channel, and I'll just see. These are views from work over the last couple of months, and you can see that there are quite a few distractions that show up. Although I have to say, on the plus side, it's fun to see what's going on at everybody's house throughout the day. So. And then I have another distraction. This one I just couldn't resist throwing a little Dilbert action into it. I think we've all experienced this kind of Zoom call before. It is, without a doubt, we all are there. So, we should be encouraging employers to help us as employees to find dedicated workspace and adequate childcare. It really is. There was a very sudden transition to virtual work back in the spring, and even today, there's a good chance that people are still working in workspaces that are, how should I say it, suboptimal, or dealing with unexpected parenting. I have an 11-year-old at home, and I'm he's in 6th grade, and that's a challenge. I am very thankful every day that I don't have an elementary school kid, because I can only imagine how hard that is to try to work and do remote school. So patience, what I would say, is the best way to deal with distractions from our coworkers. How about social isolation? This is another thing that's starting to crop up. As the longer this goes on, the harder it is. Loneliness is a very common issue with teleworkers. It was an issue before the pandemic hit, and not just for extroverts. So isolation can cause employees to feel less belonging in their organization. It's a common complaint about remote work. Employees often miss informal social interaction that you get in the office. Extroverts may suffer from isolation more in the short run, particularly if they don't have opportunities to connect with others in their remote work situation. And it is something that I have been struggling with myself. I am a little bit of an extrovert, for those of you who know me. And so I am trying to have regular interactions with people just to keep myself from climbing the walls. So over time, isolation can cause employees to feel less belonging to their organization, which of course then impacts engagement and increases the intention to leave the agency or the company where you're working. So social isolation is a real challenge that we're dealing with here. So the numbers back this up. This was from a company called Owl Labs. They have a State of Remote Work annual report. This was from the 2020 version, and my colleague Steve Dabrowski shared the survey with me. I really appreciate Steve giving me some of these statistics. But they back up what we're talking about here. You know, some of the challenges that you listed in our poll at the beginning show up here. You know, the reduced employee focus, reduced employee productivity, overworking, maintaining company culture are some of the challenges that the managers are concerned about. But even with remote workers, communicating, loneliness, unplugging after work, distractions at home, staying motivated. These are the kinds of challenges that everybody is dealing with. So, don't feel bad if you're working on this. Just be aware that we're all in the same boat. And so what we're going to try to do now is we're going to try to move into some best practices to help you support your remote team. So the assumption here is that you are a manager and you have some teammates that are working for you, or you are on a team. So if you're on a team and you have that group of people that you work with, you can take some of these best practices and leverage them in your own work. So you probably, just straight up front, managers probably need to loosen the reins a little while you're figuring out and continuing to tailor accountability for each employee's unique circumstances. This successful pivot to virtual work really does require that managers be willing to recalibrate how they lead their people. So here's some ideas. Communications options, right? So there's two kinds of communications that we talk about in the workplace. There's synchronous communication, which is face to face. It's on the phone. It's I say, you hear, you respond, I hear. It's immediate. And this is synchronous communication is what I struggle with my 11-year-old with, because he doesn't know that device it was really started out as a phone. But synchronous communication in case of emergency, it's good for team building. It's good for complex issues that require some back and forth or some negotiation. Asynchronous communication, on the other hand, is communication that happens outside of the boundaries, outside of the immediate. This is what you can do when you're providing comments or edits or doing or asking for quick collaboration. Or this is on the bottom of the pyramid: announcements, inspiration, feedback. Those are the kinds of things that you can provide. So the tools are different. So synchronous communication, phone, video call, face-to-face kinds of things. Asynchronous communication, it's chat, it's Slack or Microsoft Teams, it's email. And so, video alone is particularly useful for complex or sensitive conversations, but it's not the be-all, end-all. So, when you're looking for quick collaboration or you need to have some sort of paper trail, the asynchronous communication comes to the fore. So you need to be deliberate in what you choose here and what's available for the team. So everybody needs to see what's going on and what the tools are that are available. And you really kind of need to establish rules of engagement with these tools. So, I found an article that reviewed 30 years of virtual work research by a couple of professors who published in the Harvard Business Review, and it showed that the most effective virtual workers have two specific skill sets. One, they establish rules of engagement for virtual interactions, and two, they build and maintain trust. So we're going to talk about rules of engagement here first. In the old days, working together evolved naturally. But in today's thrown in the deep end world, you have to be more deliberate about how you're having these conversations. So at a minimum, you need to discuss with the team the best means of communications, which we just reviewed. So pick your tools, decide how you're going to use them. Then you need to agree on the best times to connect. So you might ask a virtual coworker or your employees on your team, what times of day are typically better to call or text? Are there particular times that I should avoid? Some people have childcare that doesn't start until 9 o'clock or 9:30, and so early morning meetings are probably not going to work for that person. So being aware of their situation is going to help out in terms of establishing that connection and being explicit about expectations. The third thing to do is talk to people about how's the best way to share information, especially when collaborating. Do you have a shared drive? Is there a SharePoint space? How are you going to share documents? So if you think the current situation is frustrating, wait until your coworker inadvertently deletes the updates you spent the last 3 days working on because they're using the wrong version of the document, right? So I think it's important to establish these things, be upfront about them. You have to be more explicit in your communications in this kind of world. So speaking of being explicit about communications, you should be explicit about standards. How soon should you reply to emails, to chats, to Teams messages? What are people's core hours, right? So if you've got people that have childcare issues, you might have people that have different core hours. So does your team have a good Venn diagram of core hours? Be explicit on frequency, means, and timing. So establish a structured daily check-in. This is something that my team has been doing for 3 years. We have a daily stand-up call where we get together, we all get on the phone, and we talk. We answer 3 questions. What did I do yesterday? What am I doing today? And what challenges am I up against? And then we also add in, what am I grateful for? And we do this in 15 minutes or less. We just go through the team and everybody talks about what they've been working on, what they're going to work on, what their challenges are, and what they're grateful for. And then we get off the phone and get on with the rest of our day. But it establishes this connection with the team. And so that's what I mean by be explicit on frequency, mean, timing. You need to make sure that everybody understands teleconference would be the best choice for a daily check-in meeting, video conferencing for collaboration meetings, instant message or text messages or team messages when something is urgent, or pick up the phone. Everybody needs to make sure they understand how the shared drive space is going to be used. So, and then the last bullet here is encourage employees to unplug after work hours. You should include rules on when to quit, because it's hard to find that stopping place when you don't have the commute and you have to be home at a certain hour. So I know that there are probably some people on the call today that have taken their commute and they use that 30 or 45 minutes to exercise every day instead of sitting in the car or sitting on the metro. I applaud you. I salute you. I am not one of those people, and I should be. Make sure that you are defining all of these things and establishing these up front and discussing it as a team. So one other thing you need to include is opportunities for social interaction. So what kind of icebreakers or other social activities have you run across or have you used with your team? How about in the chat? Share with us some of the icebreakers or social activities that you've participated in over the last 7 months. It's important to provide these opportunities. Productive employees are engaged employees, and engaged employees have a connection to their team and their manager, and that's what the icebreakers and the social interactions give us, is a chance to engage with people and connect with our team, with our manager. Zoom bingo is a great one. Walking to the regions, Mark, I'm going to need to learn more about that. Zoom family time on Fridays, this is good. Trivia contest, yep. Yeah, there's all kinds of online games that you can play. Um, Even something as simple as my first bullet here: leave time at the beginning of team calls just for non-work items. Talk about what have you been doing with your family. What did you talk about birthdays or anniversaries or other things. So schedule some time at the beginning of the meeting just to talk about non-work items. That's going to be hard for some people who are really kind of get down to business kind of people, but it's important to make the time to do that social interaction. Schedule informal conversations. We get together on every other Friday, my team, and for an hour we just talk about non-work topics. There's no work allowed in these, and it really has built our connections through it all. All right, offering encouragement and support. This is not just for managers. This is for your coworkers as well. If you are a newly remote employee, or an employee is clearly struggling but not communicating stress or anxiety, there's a simple way to fix that. Just ask them how they're doing. Even a general question such as how is this remote work stuff working out for you? You can find out all kinds of important information that you might not otherwise hear. So just simply ask the question, and be sure to use your active listening skills. You have to let that employee's stress or concerns rather than your own be the focus of the conversation. But it's an easy fix to that. Employees look to their managers for cues on how to react to sudden changes or crisis situations. So if you are communicating stress and helplessness, this has what researchers call a trickle-down effect on employees. So people that are high on self-regulation and emotional intelligence are in control of their feelings and impulses, and they're able to create an environment of trust and fairness. There's a large body of knowledge and research around emotional intelligence and self-regulation, which is one of the components of emotional intelligence. And so be aware of where you are in this in the whole change continuum, and make sure that you are doing the things and not communicating your own stress and anxiety to your employees. But let's acknowledge it. Let's listen to people's anxieties and concerns and empathize. You can do a two-pronged approach to this. So you can acknowledge the stress and anxiety that people are feeling in these difficult circumstances, but you can also provide affirmation. We got this. We can do this. This is tough, but I know we can handle this. So let's look at ways for us to use strengths during this time. Those are some things that you can say that affirm your confidence in the team, and help them feel better about the things that are going on. Just taking a quick moment to look at the chat. You guys are great with this chat. I really appreciate your sharing. All right. So let's talk about tips for managing expectations, because this is important. Managing expectations is important because it promotes dialogue, right? So one of the ways you can manage expectations is just talk to each other. I was just talking about how you have to control your own stress and anxiety and not communicate to that to your team. I was involved at a company that was going through a pretty big restructuring about 6 years ago. And the CEO said something that I will never forget. He got all the managers together, and he was talking about this is why we have to do the restructuring, and he clearly spelled it out for everybody to understand. And he said, as managers, you have to put your own oxygen mask on first before you can help anybody else. And he said, this is why I'm telling you all of this, so that you can start to understand why we have to make these drastic changes, and then you can help your employees and your teams understand why we have to make these drastic changes. So this promoting the dialogue is helping you put your oxygen mask on first, but it also helps to keep everybody engaged. The two-way dialogue between managers and employees ensures that communication efforts help rather than hurt engagement. Now, there's some really good Gartner research that shows employees' understanding of organizations' decisions and their implications during change is far more important for the success of the change than employees liking it. We don't like what's happening here, but we don't have a choice in it. So we have to understand what the organization is doing and why they're doing it so that we can support it. And your job as a manager is to help to communicate that down to your team. So put your own oxygen mask on first, be proactive about communication, and be accessible and provide clarity on priorities, milestones, performance goals, those kinds of things. Wherever you can, link that back to the organizational mission. Cindy, thank you for sharing that. I didn't even know there was a book on that. Maybe my CEO had read that first. All right. Another thing that you can do, outputs over processes. Focus on the outputs, not the processes. You need to enable your employees to complete their work in ways that are easiest and most productive for them. So providing flexibility empowers your team. It's not so important that everybody is logged on at 9 a.m. and logs off at 4 p.m. Not in this world. So when you provide that kind of flexibility, it creates greater clarity for employees, it drives greater engagement levels, and thus will improve your output. One of the top engagement drivers for employees is seeing their work contribute to company goals. And if you haven't taken the time to draw that line with your team, now is the time, and you focus on the outputs and how their outputs connect to the company or agency goals. Help them, empower them, and they will rise to the challenge. Share what works is another idea here. So sharing information about what works virtually, kind of like what we're doing right now in the chat. Find best practices and recommend them to people. Talk to your team about what's working for you. Ask them what they're hearing from their friends or their colleagues about what's working in their teams. Bring up suggestions. This is a great time to develop ideas and strategies and experiment with things. So have a brainstorming session with the team. What can we do different? What can we do better? Then try some of those things. That we're engaged in a great big experiment on virtual work. So might as well take advantage of it and see what you can come up with. One thing that my team has done, we've created a shared tip sheet. It's actually a channel in Slack, and we collect other ideas on suggestions for the ways remote teams can work together better. We do things like how do we incorporate healthy behaviors. We throw out time management ideas. We share personal strategies for staying on task and organized. So it's a matter of sharing the information and getting that kind of conversation going. Here's one thing that's a challenge for everybody, I think. It's respecting boundaries, but most importantly, respecting your own boundaries. So model your behavior by not being obvious when you're working outside of your core hours. It's really tempting to just say, I'm going to pop upstairs and check on my work email to see if anybody wrote me back. And then 3 hours later, it's past bedtime and you're still up there down the rabbit hole. So model behavior for your team by not sending out emails at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. or 4 a.m. or whatever time your anxiety got you out of bed and you decided to open up the work laptop and start to poke through things. Here's a pro tip for you. Outlook has a delayed delivery feature. So you can actually set a time that an email will be sent. And it's in the options ribbon, and there's a button called delay delivery, and you can set a date and a time for that email. So one of the things that I used to do is when I was embarrassed about how late I was up, I would always set my emails to go out at 8 or 8:30 the next morning, because I didn't want people to know that I was up that late, and I am not ashamed to admit that now. So respect your boundaries, respect your team's boundaries as well. How can we respect our own boundaries? Do you have any ideas on that? In the chat, do you have any ideas on how to respect boundaries? Do you have any ideas about what would you tell your boss Is your boss doing things like asking you to deliver things after core business hours are done? What can you say to your boss? Mark, if you're quoting Office Space in my chat, I salute you, sir. Thank you. It's important to keep Office Space in the front of our minds because that's a genius of a movie. Yep. Yes, Lynn. Encouraging your employees. Why are you working at this hour? I noticed that you sent that email at 9:30 at night. Please be aware that I do not require you to answer emails at 9:30 at night. It's a simple conversation, and it goes back to setting expectations with the team and agreeing on the standards, on the rules of engagement. So, Angela, should you hide your working times, or does that make you human and show your vulnerability too? It's a good balance, and that's a great point actually. Yes, absolutely. I would say it's okay, especially if you're in a crunch time, if you got a big deadline. It's okay to send emails or let people know that you've been working off hours. Um, that's fine. The challenge comes when it becomes a habit and you find yourself working at 10 o'clock every Friday night on things. I would say that's probably the thing that you're up against. So don't let it become too much of a regular thing. Oh, Mark, sharing with your boss how much time it's taking you on the projects. Yep. And then asking which ones. That's one of my favorite things to do, Mark, is, okay, I can get that done, but which of these other six things do you want me to drop? Because I don't have time to do it all. And so that is absolutely one of the great conversations to have with someone who keeps piling stuff on you, is make them prioritize things for you. I love it. Jill, you're right. Some people are night owls, early morning, so that goes back to establishing the rules of engagement and being aware of what people's work preferences are and being flexible about that. So you're absolutely right. But that also goes to respecting boundaries. If you have a night owl on your team, then don't schedule early morning meetings, or vice versa. If you've got a bunch of early morning people, don't expect them to be working after late into the afternoon. So it's a matter of being aware of the circumstances of your team and understanding what everybody's preference is, because we're in a very flexible world, and we should try this out and see how it works. Okay, I'm going to move on. So next section, building connections and collaboration into the work. This is a great challenge. So one of the big things that I challenge you to do here is to laugh more. Okay, so this I wanted we have a animated GIF image. It's one of those short little movies, and the 6 seconds before this screenshot was taken, we were all doing a happy dance. And I wish I could show it to you, but Connect doesn't do animated GIFs. But you can see the joy on everybody's face in this. This is my team, and we just finished up a happy dance, and now we're really laughing about it. And laughing is a key, actually, to making teams function better, more efficiently. So there's a great paper by a couple of Finnish economists that show how laughter improves team meetings and the functioning of teams. It serves four purposes. When you open a meeting with laughter, it creates a relaxed work climate. It reduces tension and the asymmetry between members of the team. So it puts you as the manager or the boss down on a level that's more equal with the other members of the team. The second thing laughter does is it closes down a topic or a phase of a meeting. It functions as a signal of mutual understanding and a readiness to move on to a new topic. So think about how you talk about something and then somebody makes a joke and you all laugh and then you move on to the next thing. That happens all the time. Third thing, when demanding tasks are assigned, laughter can reduce the tension and stress resulting from the assignment. So a little gallows humor goes a long way in those kind of situations. And then the fourth thing laughter does is it helps parties smooth difficult communications or save face during micro negotiations or other remedial issues. So laughter is an important part of how your team functions. And if you want to follow up on this, there's some great resources in the resources document that I'm going to post with this recording, including a podcast that talks about the paper from the Finnish economists. And I'm not going to butcher their names because I can't pronounce Finnish. But there's also some other scholarly research into how laughter helps teams. So laugh more, laugh more. Okay, next thing you can do, building in collaboration and communication, is build trust. So remember I talked about the review of 30 years of virtual work research from those Harvard Business Review professors? The second of the two specific skill sets that they identified is building and maintaining trust. And they say there are two types of trust. There's relational trust, which is trust that your colleagues are looking out for your best interest, and competence-based trust, which is trust that your colleague is both capable and reliable. So if you build trust through relational trust, you have to bring a social element into the virtual work relationship. So we've talked about opening up your meetings with some sort of social or non-work conversation, and building in opportunities to have social interactions. Another thing you can do to build relational trust is let your enthusiasm and personality show in your virtual communications. So, Angela, that's, you mentioned that about showing vulnerability. That's exactly what we're talking about. Showing vulnerability builds relational trust. So that is one component. The other part of this trust that you need to build is competence-based trust, right? So make sure your team knows that your background and your experience, make sure your team knows your background and experiences to show how you can help with the current project or the current work that's happening. Make sure they know that. If you've got a relationship already built with the team, that's great. They already know that about you. But if you've got new team members that have started in the last 7 months, God forbid, they're still trying to get caught up and get to know you. So one of the ways you build that competence-based trust is make sure people know that your experiences have given you a map for how to go forward. Talk about the why and the how of decisions you make and the actions you take. Don't be mysterious. Be open in your choices. That is part of building that competence-based trust. Take initiative in completing tasks whenever possible and communicate that you're doing so with periodic updates. So you are showing your commitment to the shared task that way, also building competence-based trust. And respond to communications in a timely manner. Silence quickly destroys trust in a virtual relationship. And so if you need more time, the best thing to do is to send a quick acknowledgement of the email and let your colleagues know when you will reply. So competence-based trust, relational trust, these are the two kinds of trust you need to be building, both of them.
Try again.
Okay, again, this research I will include in the sources. So again, we are in the middle of we're in the middle of, what are we doing? We're in the middle of building connections and collaboration into work. So be deliberate about this, is my advice to you. Be deliberate about collaboration. Provide shared documents that track work activities. That's one way that we've done it before, is we share our work activities in a Trello board. And that way it's easy for managers to stay up on what everybody is working on. Make sure you're sharing your calendars. Make sure you set your away notifications. Make sure you have your out-of-office replies on. That is the way to build in that kind of deliberate collaboration with everybody. Be deliberate about communication. So planned regular communications. I mentioned our daily stand-up meeting. That's something straight out of Agile software design, but it works great in this kind of remote team environment. It gives everybody a chance to check in, hear what everybody else is working on, and who knows, there's often times when we make connections between things that I'm working on and things somebody else is working on because I'm just listening to what they did yesterday and what they're doing today. So the other challenge for managers is to avoid micromanaging. If you have regular one-on-one check-ins, you will not feel the need to jump in and micromanage, I hope. Um, so just make sure that you are doing regular check-ins with your team members, and that will help everybody feel more engaged. And please don't forget about social activities. Again, weekly social time, some regularly scheduled social activity is critical for maintaining the engagement of your team and maintaining those connections between everybody. All right, so the last part of this is establishing behaviors and rituals that build a positive team culture. Culture is everything, and it is on big display right now. Culture and engagement is probably the most important issues companies were facing even before the COVID crisis hit. I found a 2015 study from Deloitte showing that 87% of organizations cited culture and engagement as one of their top challenges, and 50% of those organizations called the problem very important. I mean, doesn't it feel like it's even more urgent than ever? That was in 2015. Can you imagine what it's like now? So study after study shows that organizations that create a culture defined by meaningful work, deep employee engagement, job and organizational fit, and strong leadership outperform their peers and beat out the competition in attracting top talent. And that goes for government agencies, it goes for private sector, it goes for academia. It's across the board that if you have a culture that's a strong culture that gives people meaningful work, people are going to get there and they're going to work harder. They're going to be more engaged. They're going to be more productive. But shifting the culture of an organization takes time, effort, and commitment. So it's got to begin with clear, visible changes in behavior, and it especially has to come from the top. And so let me talk to you a little bit about intentional culture. This is something that we do, but it is something that you don't have to have special help doing. You just have to think about how it is all going to come together. Okay, so how do you change culture in the middle of a pandemic? It actually may be easier than ever. So, I mean, did you ever believe that for once, that you would be working from home 5 days a week for 7 months straight? I mean, most of you are federal employees, right, or government employees. That was never even on the table as a thought that it could happen. But here you are. So much of the old way of doing things has really been swept away. That includes your team culture. And if you aren't deliberately cultivating new culture, guess what? It's growing anyway, and outside of your awareness or control. So what kind of culture is replacing the one that's been swept away? So this disruption is the perfect time to focus on this kind of work, building the culture within your team. And your team can be your team of 5, or it can be your division, it can be your directorate, it can be your agency. It doesn't matter if whatever the scope is, it's all the same steps. So, it's defining the mission and vision, of course, at the top. That's probably already done, but do you know it? If you asked your team today, can you tell me what the mission and vision is? Would they be able to know it? Give me a check mark if you can tell me what the mission or vision of your agency or your organization is. Use the hand raise menu and just give me a green check. Lynn, I figured you would be able to tell me that. Yeah, good. That's good. That's better than I was expecting. I'm impressed, actually. I'm impressed. But that's great, because that means that you can now start drawing lines between what you and your team does back to that mission and vision. That's the important part. So the foundation of any culture begins with that mission, but it also has to do with the core values. Most organizations have core values, but few define the standards of behavior by which the values are demonstrated in measures. So the next step on this is values, then behaviors, and then behavior is the way we respond or we act in response to stimuli. So behaviors reinforce the capital V values by explicitly stating what someone does when they're living those values. Right? So how many people can say, I know what my company or my agency's behaviors look like? Right? And so then the third part there is rituals. Rituals are prescribed behavior employed on some sort of fixed schedule as a guaranteed response. They reinforce behavior by making them normal. It's things that you repeat over and over again. So things like talking about the mission and vision in your team meetings, beginning a training program with reviewing the values of the organization. Those are the kinds of rituals that you can do to build culture. And in today's world, you really need to define those rituals to make all of this normal. So, behaviors create opportunities for two-way dialogues that focus on a realistic picture of both the positive and negative implications of the current COVID situation. That's from Gartner and their research study. So employees are key stakeholders in all of this, and if you are showing them that you are planning to look out for them in the long haul, they're going to reward you with engagement and productivity. But you have to model the behaviors. You have to wash your hands, as the image I've picked here shows, right? You have to show people that you're living those behaviors and those values. Okay? Encourage employees to call out unethical conduct too. Gartner research shows that during periods of uncertainty, employee misconduct increases by as much as 33%. It's a depressing statistic, but there it is. There's a bunch of upheaval right now in the federal space. The federal workforce is on the ropes. You guys are getting I can just go ahead and say jerked around, and it's tempting just to let everything slide. But you should encourage people to not do that, because that's how you slip away from the values of the organization. So let's talk real quick. What is one thing that you do every day or every week? We're going to talk about rituals now. So in chat, one thing that you do every day or every week. Rituals are prescribed behaviors that reinforce culture. Rituals show what is valued. So a ritual is something you do every day or every week. And you meet with management. Lynn, you check in with everyone on the team. Mark, every week you do a progress report. Angela, coffee with others. Mark, trivia questions. So these are great. Dina, you read a proverb. This is awesome. These are showing what is valued. Rituals make time for what matters most. And so when you carve out time to do a ritual, that ritual is tied back to a behavior, which is tied back to a value. And so you are making that important to everyone. So there's a time management expert named Laura Vanderkam who studies how busy people spend their lives, and she discovered just how elastic time is when it comes to making time for things that matter most. She's got a great TED Talk. It'll be in the source document. In her TED Talk, she explains how we spend the 168 hours in each week. And she's got a great story about how she was studying these busy professional women who had seriously packed schedules when one of them had a basement that was flooded. And it took that woman 7 hours to get everything straightened out. Now, in the TED Talk, in the TED Talk, Laura says, if I had asked her before her basement flooded if she could find 7 hours to do something, she would have laughed in my face. But she was able to find it because suddenly that was important. So, if you exercise every day, what does that say about the values that you place on health and fitness? If I work past dinner time 2 or 3 nights a week, what does that say about the value I place on my personal time? Or on the positive side, if I have dinner with a family or have a weekly game night with my family, what does that say about how the value I place on my family? If rituals are a reflection of what we value, shouldn't we be intentional about them? We have to be intentional about them. So let's talk about some examples of rituals. Right, these are things that my team does, and I will give again. I'm going to give a shout out to Steve Dabrowski about this first one because that's something that his company Cornerstone instituted as soon as the lockdown started. They said, as a company, meetings are going to start at 5 minutes after the hour, either the top of the hour or the bottom of the hour, and they're only going to either be 25 minutes or 50 minutes. And so this gives people a chance to actually have a break from the Zoom meetings, from the WebEx, from the GoTo meeting, from the video. Everybody needs a break. You need to go refresh your coffee or recycle your coffee, or you need to stretch. You need to do something. So this is an example of a ritual that values your own personal needs. 1 day a week, meeting free. How about that? Wouldn't that be a luxury? We promote a monthly wellness challenge We discuss our culture monthly. We have a monthly company meeting where one of the agenda items is always to discuss some point of our culture. Um, a ritual could even be have virtual coffee with a different colleague once a week, and then to the team, tell something you learned about that. So, rituals, very important because they show what is valued. All right, one last thing for a final note for you managers. You got this, okay? Our lives will be forever changed due to COVID-19, work included. We know that you can work from home. We now know the importance of video, and we also know that too much is too much. We know that our own and our employees' expectations have shifted about remote work. So it's time to rethink the work and to understand remote work and hybrid teams can be as productive as the in-person office situation that we just left. We all know also now it's not cheaper, it's not faster, it's not easier to work from anywhere, but we can do it. So, ready or not, the future is here. What are you going to do now to understand the new normal and to make some changes to make it work for you? That's my challenge to you. Understand the new normal and make those changes. Okay, thank you for participating today. I really appreciate it, and I love this picture of the updated Mona Lisa. Um, it's been a great conversation. This chat has just been on fire. I really appreciate that. I'm going to review it, and I'm going to start pulling out some things from that too, from the chat, some of your great ideas, and I'll include those in the source document that I'll post with a recording of this. So, let's see. I need to share a different set of documents now. Well, that's me. Thank you, everybody. Here's the survey link, and I'm also going to put up our web. Oh, where'd our web pod go? Oh, I'm not using the right layout, am I, Mel? Thank you. Here's our survey. Please let us know how I did. We review the results of our surveys all the time. You can either click the link on the slide here or in the lower left-hand corner. There's a set of web links, and all four of those are live links. So you can click on the session survey to launch the survey. Upcoming TOC Professional Development Program, our symposium launches on November 10th. So Symposium, our Professional Development Program Symposium, is a new concept this year for TOC. We're doing a 1.5-hour symposium that devotes a majority of the program time to a presentation, and on November it's on authentic leadership in a context of crisis. And then we follow that presentation with the opportunity to deepen the learning of the topic through open discussion, breakout sessions, and activities. It's an exciting new program that we're adding to our professional development program at TOC. You do have to be a TOC registrant and be part of the TOC Professional Development Program in order to be able to participate in our symposium next month. So if you would like to learn more about that, you can click on the link there to learn more to visit the monthly program. And then the TOC registration is how you learn more about registering to take part in the TOC Professional Development Program. Speaking of which, TOC registration is open now. You can go to the TOC registration link to find out more about TOC. The Training Officers Consortium is a network of skilled government learning leaders. It has the longest running professional development program that is focused on federal employees. And we're uniquely positioned to understand all of the challenges facing our federal, state, and local government training officers and human capital specialists. So come see what's going on at TOC. We do record our webinars, and like this one, we have others that we have recorded. They are all available on our website at trainingofficers.org under the program archive. and that's where you'll be able to find the recording for this one once the recording is processed, and I make sure I get everything updated. As Mel mentioned, I am the chief technologist for the Training Officers Consortium. I do sit on the executive board, and my duty as chief technologist is really to make sure the website is up to date. So thank you, everybody. We really appreciate you coming today. That is all we have, and I hope that you learned something, and please step up to the challenge of trying something new in this new world of remote work, and let us know how you're doing. Thanks, everybody.